Advaita Gadada Ivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 27, Text 13. Evam Trivrid Ahankaro Bhutendriya Manoma Yehe Swabhase Lakshito Nena Sad Abhasena Satyadrit. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The self-realized soul is thus reflected first in the threefold ego and then in the body, senses, and mind. So yesterday, past few verses, Lord Kapiladev has been giving the instructions to Devahuti of how one should act, see through the eyes of knowledge, control the mind by constant practice and detachment, and thus be situated in the self. So the conditioned soul thinks, I'm this body, but a liberated soul thinks, I'm not this body, I'm spirit soul. This I am is called ego, or identification of the self. So we are always thinking, I'm the body. Anything we think of, my body, my country, my house, my family, my work, my whatever, and that we think in terms of our body, for all those who are conditioned. Now, those who are liberated, they think, I am an eternal, I am a soul. So that I is always remaining, that I can never be finished. That we have to understand, that the ego is always there, the self is always there, whether in the liberated stage or in the conditioned stage. Only in the conditioned stage, the identification is wrong. In the conditioned stage, we are thinking, I'm the body. But in the liberated stage, one understands correctly, I am the spirit soul. And the perfect liberation is understanding, I am eternal part and parcel of God. So this ego or identification of the self, okay, then I am this body, or everything in relationship to the body is mine, is called false ego. But when one is self-realized and thinks that he is an eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord, that identification is real ego. So we can see that ego is always going to be there. It's not that, oh, once I get liberated, I don't have an ego at all. No, because the self is always there. Self can never be annihilated. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that, hey Arjuna, you are eternal, I am eternal, all the kings present here on this, whoever you're seeing is eternal. The soul can never be killed, nor withered by the wind, cut to pieces. No, it's just we are identifying ourselves with the body, and that's why it's called false ego. The true ego is understanding, I am a spirit soul, I am part and parcel of God. I'm an eternal servant of God. That is true ego. One conception is in the darkness of the threefold qualities of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. And the other is in the pure state of goodness, called Shuddha Sattva or Vasudev Sattva. So in the material world, when we are conditioned, we are bound by this goodness, passion, and ignorance. These modes are binding on us. That's why they're called guna ropes. We are tightly bound by these ropes. But that's our conditioned life, material life. But liberated life means no more goodness, passion, and ignorance. There we are under pure goodness, Shuddha Sattva, pure goodness. From that goodness, one does not fall down then, does not again come into material goodness or passion or ignorance. When we say that we give up our ego, this means that we give up our false ego, but real ego is always present. When one is reflected through the material contamination of the body and mind in false identification, he is in the conditional state. But when he's reflected in the pure stage, he's called liberated. So this self, I always will remain. again, bringing to the point, because we are always thinking, oh, it's okay. Once I give up the body, it doesn't matter to me. Anyway, I will not exist. No, then we are thinking we are material. Then we are thinking we are matter. That's exactly what we need to correct. This false ego, thinking that we are the body. That's what we have to give up. And we have to be situated in the real ego. I am eternal. I am the eternal soul. I am part and parcel of God. I'm eternal servant of God. The identification of oneself with one's material possessions in the conditional stage must be purified, and one must identify himself in relationship with the Supreme Lord. In the conditioned state, one accepts everything as an object of sense gratification, and in the liberated state, one accepts everything for the service of the Supreme Lord. So we need to see ourselves in relation to God. We are thinking we are independent, and that is material life. But when we see ourselves in relation to God, that is liberated life. We are thinking whatever I'm seeing, whatever it may be. We open our eyes, wherever we find ourselves, whatever we see, we think this is for my enjoyment. Let me see how I can use it to the best so that I can enjoy the most. That is material life. And liberated life is understanding everything belongs to God. This body that I am also belongs to God. The senses that the body is made up of also belongs to God. And so let me engage everything in God's service. That is liberated life. So we can see it's not that at the point of liberation, the soul is just sleeping. No, activity is always there. Because we are the soul, activity is always there, but acting for the pleasure of God, in service of God, that is liberated life. So it does not mean that, oh, now I'm liberated. After I give up the body, I'm in the spiritual world, and so I'm liberated, and I'm only floating in the sky. What am I doing? Oh, I'm floating in the sky. How long will I float in the sky for? And if somebody asks me what you're doing, oh, I'm floating in the sky. But after some time of floating in the sky, I'll get bored because that's not my original position. My original position is I'm a servant of God. That is the original position of each and every living entity. Each and every living entity. Krishna says that all living beings are my fragmental parts and parcels, without any exception. So real life begins from the point of liberation. Beginning of real life is from the point of liberation, because then we are understanding ourselves clearly, not that seeing ourselves in relation to the body, but seeing ourselves in relation to Krishna, in relation to God. So Krishna consciousness, devotional service is the actual liberated stage of a living entity. Otherwise, both accepting and rejecting on the material platform or in voidness or impersonalism are imperfect conditions for the pure soul. So the natural position of every soul, of every living entity is Krishna consciousness. That's the natural position. That's the liberated position. But now in the material world, what we are doing, our mind makes us accept and reject situations, makes us accept and reject things. But those are just all is on the mental platform. Nothing belongs to us for us to reject anything. So all that is mental speculation, and it's the nature of the mind to be always speculating. So we have to give up this mental platform. We have to rise above the mental platform and be situated on the platform of the soul. See through the eyes of scripture. That's what Lord Kapila was saying to Devahuti. See through the eyes of knowledge. That means seeing through the eyes of scripture, seeing everything as belonging to God. By the understanding of the pure soul called Satyadrik, one can see everything as a reflection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A concrete example can be given in this connection. A conditioned soul sees a very beautiful rose and he thinks that the nice aromatic flower should be used for his own sense gratification. This is one kind of vision. A liberated soul, however, sees the same flower as a reflection of the Supreme Lord. He thinks this beautiful flower is made possible by the superior energy of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, it belongs to the Supreme Lord and should be utilized in his service. These are two kinds of vision. The conditioned soul sees the flower for his own enjoyment, and the devotee sees the flower as an object to be used in the service of the Lord. So we see a flower. What do we do with the flower? What is the thought that comes up in my what do I think when I see the flower? Oh, this is a nice, beautiful flower. Then let me smell it. I will feel so nice. Let me take the fragrance of it. Or am I thinking this flower belongs to God? He knows how to enjoy it properly. For me, I'll just take a whiff and then that's all. I don't know what else to do. But God, he knows how to enjoy. Ras Bihari, Krishna is Ras Bihari, supreme enjoyer. He really knows how to enjoy. So let me offer this service to him, this rose to him. Let me offer him this rose, and then I smell it. That is liberated. That is a liberated soul. He understands this belongs to God. Let me use it in the service of God. So this is the two things. So this is true for anything that we see, or anything, any circumstance that we are in. So the liberated soul, the pure devotee sees everything, everyone, every circumstance in relation to God. He understands that nothing, no one is independent of Krishna. He understands that. So then, in the same way, one can see the reflection of the Supreme Lord in one's own senses, mind, and body, in everything. With that correct vision, one can engage everything in the service of the Lord. So the idea is not that, oh, I need to give up because nothing belongs to me. That is the right understanding. That is real renunciation, understanding who things rightfully belong to. If I think it belongs to me, then I will say, oh, no, I need to renounce it. Oh, no, it's sinful. It's mine, but I'm not going to indulge in it. But that's not the perfect way to think. The perfect thinking is, it belongs to God. So let me engage it in his service. This mind does not belong to me. I just somehow have it. I'm inside this body and I have a mind. I didn't create the mind. Yeah. So let me engage it in the service of Krishna. This body, I didn't create it. I'm just found myself in it. So let me engage it in the service of God. That is the correct understanding. It is stated in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that one who has engaged everything, his vital energy, his wealth, his intelligence, and his words in the service of the Lord, or who desires to engage all these in the service of the Lord, no matter how he's situated, is to be considered a liberated soul, or Satyadrik. Such a man has understood things as they are. So this is a liberated soul, a pure devotee. He's understood things as they are, that he wants to engage his very life, the vital air, the energy, his life, his wealth, his intelligence, his words in the service of the Lord. Or even if he desires to engage all this in the service of the Lord, no matter how he's situated, at least that even if the desire is there, he's to be considered a liberated soul, Satyadrik. Why? Because a mango is always a mango. A mango could be green, but in time it will ripen. Prabhupada would say that. Mango is a mango, give it time. Right now it may be green, but with time it is going to become a nectarian, it will become golden, it will become juicy. Yeah? So just even having the desire, oh, I wish I would be able to do it. One day we will be situated on that platform, and that is pure devotional service. Just even having the desire and actually doing it, that's already a liberated platform. So this is pure devotional service. Engaging everything in the service of God, or even desiring to engage everything in the service of the Lord. And such a man has understood things as they are. Means the intelligence is rightly situated. Then this living entity is understood to be intelligent because he's understood things as they are. He's correctly understood his position. He's understood the position of God, and he's understood the position of the material energy. Is that okay?
Yes.
Did anyone want to comment or add anything?
No.
And how can we be situated in this platform, on this self-realized platform? How could we reach from where we are now to this platform?
Just chant and remember him in every, like if you're making something or if you're walking also, like, if you see a tree or something, just say this is your creation and it is for you only. And after you, I come. Like, like everything is dedicated to you initially.
Very good. Yes. Continue to hear and chant and see everything in relation to God. Very good. Yes. So we will come to that point. So Bhuta Sukshmendriya Mano Buddhi Adishva Iha Nidraya Lineshva Asati Yastatra Vinidro Nirahankriyaha. Although a devotee appears to be merged in the 5 material elements, the objects of material enjoyment, the material senses, and material mind and intelligence, is understood to be awake and to be freed from the false ego. The explanation by Rupa Goswami in the Bhaktirasamrita Sindhu of how a person can be liberated even in this body is more elaborately explained in this verse. The living entity who has become Satyadrik, who realizes his position in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, may remain apparently merged in the 5 elements of matter, the 5 material sense objects, the 10 senses, and the mind and intelligence, but still he is considered to be awake and to be freed from the reaction of false ego. So we may see the pure devotee. He is right now living inside the material body. The body is made up of false ego, the material is made up of mind, intelligence, it's made up of the senses, and it's always looking into the sense objects, is made up of this earth, water, air, fire, ether. So the living entity is living inside the body, but because he's correctly situated as seeing everything in relationship with God, he is free from false ego. Means he's not identifying himself with the body, even though he is in the body, he is not identifying himself with the body, but he's correctly understood himself as an eternal servant of God. He's in the world, but not of the world. Many times it's used that way to explain this point. So even though he's living inside this body, he understands this body belongs to God. I belong to God. And so I am going to engage in the service of God. This is a pure devotee. He's a liberated soul. Satyadrik. Here the word Lina is very significant. The Mayavadi philosophers recommend merging in the impersonal effulgence of Brahman. That is the ultimate goal or destination. That merging is also mentioned here. But in spite of merging, one can keep his individuality. The example given by Jiva Goswami is that a green bird that enters a green tree appears to merge in the color of greenness, but actually the bird does not lose its individuality. Similarly, a living entity merged either in the material nature or in the spiritual nature does not give up its individuality. Real individuality is to understand oneself to be the eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. This information is received from the mouth of Lord Chaitanya. So suppose we see a tree and we see a green bird. A green bird is flying inside the tree. And now we are not able to see the bird anymore. The only thing we can see is the tree. Does it mean that the bird has become the tree?
No.
No, right? The bird is still a bird. And he is sitting in the tree, although we may not be able to see him. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So similarly, even when a soul is liberated, when he's liberated, when he's going into the spiritual sky in the Brahma Jyoti, so because he's situated in the Brahma Jyoti, does not mean that he himself does not exist anymore. No, the soul is eternal. That is the basic principle of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna first begins that the soul is eternal, never can be annihilated, never cut to pieces. So even if the soul goes and sits in the spiritual sky, the soul exists. The self is always there. Whether the soul is living inside the material body, as we are right now, or whether we go and fly in the spiritual sky, or we enter in one of the Vaikuntha planets. Wherever we go, the self is always going to be there. The soul always exists. Never is annihilated. Never annihilated. And so what is the identity of the soul? So Krishna, he ends the Bhagavad Gita. He gives the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, and he ends the Bhagavad Gita by saying to Arjuna, you surrender unto me. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. And I shall save you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. He says that to Arjuna in chapter 18, text 66, Sarva Dharmam Parityagya. Mam ekam sharanam raja. Mam ekam sharanam raja. Just surrender unto me. What does that mean? So Krishna is giving that information to Arjuna after he's speaking the entire Bhagavad Gita. He's giving him this information in the 18th chapter, which is like kind of a recap, in which Krishna is like giving him a recap of what he's spoken. And Lord Chaitanya, he's Krishna himself. He came 500 years ago. And he begins from this point, just to make things very easy, very simple for us. Because Lord Chaitanya knows we are Kali Yuga people. Our lives are very short. Our attention span is very, very short. We don't have much attention span. So he just began with the word. He said clearly upon the inquiry of Sanatana Goswami that a living entity is the servant of Krishna eternally. So Sanatana Goswami is one of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, and he was getting instructions from Lord Chaitanya for 2 months at where was this? At Prayag, I think. Well, anyway, can't remember if it was Prayag or at Puri. Anyway, then he was getting instructions from Lord Chaitanya, and he asked him, who am I? I don't know who am I. Lord Chaitanya said, Jivera Swarupaya Krishna Nitya Das. That every living entity is the servant of Krishna eternally. The living entity. So it means every soul is eternally a servant of Krishna. That is our identity. When we accept it, that is, and when we live according to it, that is liberated life, when we begin to understand it. When we don't want to follow it, that's material life. That's the reason we are here in the material world. Because we are like, why should I be a servant of God? I can be God myself. Why should I submit to God? And that is material life. Because we don't want to accept our true position. So Krishna also confirms in Bhagavad Gita that the living entity is eternally his part and parcel. The part and parcel is meant to serve the whole. This is individuality. It is so even in this material existence when the living entity apparently merges in matter. The gross body is made up of 5 elements. His subtle body is made up of mind, intelligence, false ego, and contaminated consciousness. And he has 5 active senses and 5 knowledge-acquiring senses. In this way, he merges in matter. But even while merged in the 24 elements of matter, he can keep his individuality as the eternal servitor of Lord. So we have these 24 elements. We heard Lord Kapila Dev initially how he categorized, the gross elements, the subtle elements, the sense objects, the senses, the different kind of sense. So it came to 24. The entire Mahatattva, it came to 24. So the soul, even though he's living inside this 24 elements, he's still an individual. He's still an individual. And if he understands I'm an eternal part and parcel of God, that I am a servant of God, he is liberated even while he is apparently merged in matter. Either in the spiritual nature or in the material nature, such a servitor is to be considered a liberated soul. That is the explanation of the authorities, and it is confirmed in this verse. So he is liberated even though he's living in the body. Why? Because his consciousness is correctly situated. He's understood himself that I am eternal servant of God. And so he acts as an eternal servant of God. He does not act as if he is God himself. Is that okay?
Yes.
Did anyone want to add anything or comment?
No, so is it that Kapila Muni is telling Dev Ahuti Ma about the, like, how should you do bhakti? It is that what actually is devotional service, and right?
Yes, and in this, today we heard what is false ego and what is true ego. What is material life? Material life is understanding I'm the body, I'm independent of God. That is false ego. And the real ego is understanding I am eternal part and parcel of God. I'm eternal servant of God. Understanding that, acting on that platform, that is real ego. That is liberation. That is liberated platform.
And then again and again, they also specify on the Brahma Jyoti part that doesn't mean that if you go to Brahma Jyoti, then your identity is merged. You still exist as an individual, right?
That's right.
They also exist, like they emphasize on that part also again and again.
Yeah, because we are eternal. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that the soul is eternal. So even if we are sitting in the Brahma Jyoti, we are still eternal. The I is never going to go. The sense of I is never going to be individuality. We are never going to become nothing. It's not that because I'm sitting in the Brahma Jyoti, I don't exist anymore. No, I still continue to exist. That is something we need to understand. Not that, because I'm liberated, so now no more. Now I am not there anymore.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So we'll end here for today. Thank you so much for listening and joining. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.